Hello, and thank you for being again with the FinetLink channel. And today we will do some Packet Tracer where we'll implement on DHCP version 4. So let's go in our Packet Tracer. Okay. And we have an activity here for implementing this server. So as you can see, we have our addressing table where we'll have information about the routers for the interface IPv4 address for each of the interfaces and the subnet mask. And we have the two computers that are in different LANs that they will get an IPv4 address assigned by the DHCP version 4 server, and even the subnet mask default gateway and the DNS server will be assigned by the DHCP version 4 server. So we have three objectives here by configuring a router as a DHCP version 4 server, configure the DHCP relay, and configure a router as a DHCP client. So the scenario is like this. You as a network technician for the company are tasked with configuring a Cisco router as a DHCP server to provide dynamic allocation address for clients of the network, which means the clients for router 1 and router 3. And you are also required to configure the edge router, which is router number 2, as a DHCP client where he will receive an IPv4 address from the internet service provider. And since the service is centralized, you will need to configure the two LANs router, which means router 1 and router 3, to relay DHCP traffic between LANs and the router that is serving as the DHCP version 4 server. So let's continue with configure a router as a DHCP server, where it says that when you configure router 2 as a DHCP server, you have to exclude the first 10 addresses from the LANs that are in router 1 and router 2. So let's go in our config terminal. So since it asks to exclude the first 10 addresses from the network's LANs in router 1 and router 3, let's see the IP address of the router 1. Is this one, 192.168.10.0/24. So by using IP DHCP excluded address and by using 192.168.10.1 space 192.168.10.10, you are excluding the first 10 addresses with this range of IP addresses. By using the same command for the router number 3, which is 192.168.30.0/24, the IP address of the network, we say that IP DHCP excluded address will be 30.1, 192.168.30.10. The first 10 addresses for the LAN at the router number 3. So after we are done excluding the first 10 addresses, now we have to create a DHCP pool on the router 2 for each of those LAN. So let's go and create for the LAN in router 1. And if you go to the activity, sorry, we are here. It says that you should name that as R1 LAN. So we are here. And by using the command ipdhcp pool, you are creating a pool followed by the name R1 LAN. So we created the pool for the network in the router 1, and where we will include the IP address of the network. And you are understanding that you are configuring the pool by the prompt that is changed. So with the network 192.168.10.0 with a subnet mask, you are naming the IP of the network. We also will give the gateway, which will be default router, as 192.168.10.1, which will be the interface of router 1 that is connected with our LAN. And you can find it if you go to the activity, and it's this one, 192.168.10.1. Is the IP address of the interface that is connected with our LAN, and it will serve as a default gateway. So let's go in our, okay. And we can provide the DNS server by using DNS server and by including the IP address of the server, which is, even this is in our activity here, and this is the IP address. Mm-hmm. 198. Sorry, 20.245. Exit. Now let's continue and configure the pool for the router 3 now. The network that the ARC is connected for the router 3. And this will be named as R3 LAN. So, and it will be named as R3 LAN. And here, once again, we will configure the network, which will be the IP address of the network at the router 3. Okay. We can configure the default gateway, which will be the interface. You can go in the activity and find the interface that is connected, 192.168.20.1 giga 0/0. One. And then configure the DNS server, which will be the same. Now that we are done configuring the pool, what we will do, let's go first and try computers to see if they will be able to get an IP address from the router 2, which is the server. So let's go in the computer. So let's go to the desktop, let's go to IP configuration. Let's say that they will get the IP address as automatically by the server. See, it failed. It's an IP address that is provided by randomly. So let's try on computer 2. Let's go here. They say that they will need to get an IP address from the is requesting. It's trying to find out if there is anything. No, it isn't. As you can see, it's not IP address. So what to be able that those two devices that are in different LANs, for the LAN at router 1 and LAN at router 3, to be able to get an IPv4 address from the server which is router 2 configured as a server, you have to configure the DHCP relay agent. By this, you will be able to relay the DHCP traffic between the LANs and the router number 2. Because remember, when the client is trying to get an IPv4 address, it's searching for a server. And the request, it will go broadcast. But as you know, the router will be not forwarding broadcast packets to the other network. So enable the router to let the packets from searching a DHCP service to go through. You have to configure that as a relay, DHCP relay agent. So what we have to do is that we can go in the router one first. Let's go in command line, enable config terminal. And here what we have to do, we have to go to the interface that is connected with router 2. So let's go in our activity. Sorry, with the interface that is connected with our LAN. So we wanted to say that this interface to be able to allow the traffic that goes for the DHCP server for searching an IPv4 address. So it means that, and the same command will be for both router 3 and router 4. So we'll go in the interface giga 0 /0, and here we will say IP helper IP helper address, and you have to write the IP address of the interface of the router 2 that is connected with router 1. And if you go to the activity, you will find that it will be serial 0/0/0 with the IP address 10.1.1.2 at the router 2, because I was watching router 1, okay? And the serial 001 is connected with router 3. So at the router 1, we will say IP helper address will be 10.1.1.2. Let's say now shut down and exit. Now let's go to number 3, router number 3, and go through the same steps. So enable config terminal, and you have to say the interface. So the interface of the router 3 that is connected with our LAN, which is interface giga 0/0. Oh, I forgot the space. And here it will serve as IP address, and it will be the IP address of the, as from the activity to serial 001, which means this interface. It will be 10.2.2.2. So we will go at 10.2.2.2. Let's say here now shut it down And we are done configuring the router 1 and 3 as a DHCP relay. And the last part was to configure a router 2 as a DHCP client. But before we go there, what we will do, let's go and check our devices where they will be. Let's go like this, where they will be able to see. Now they are able to get an IPv4 address from our server, and as you can see, it's not from excluded IP10, the first 10 IP addresses from the network. Remember that we exclude is the next one is the first IP that is available from our pool. Now let's go to the computer to do the same. See, now it is able to get the IP address from the server. Now that we are done configuring the router 2 as a DHCP server, router 1 and router 3 as a DHCP relay agent that will allow traffic to go through the DHCP server, the last part is to configure the router 2 as a DHCP client. And to configure that, you have to see that the interface that is connected with the internet, which means that the router will get an IPv4 address automatically by the internet service provider. And this is interface giga 0/1, which means that we go, once again, we go in our router 2. Exit. So we go to the interface giga 0/1. And since we want this interface to get an IPv4 address from the internet service provider by using IP address DHCP, you mean that this will get an IPv4 address automatically. Okay? And then we have to activate this interface. Now, shut it down. And every time, remember, we do copy running config to startup config when you need to save your configuration. But before we end up our video, let's do some verification. So let's use the show running config section DHCP. So as you can see, there is the information that is configured. So it means that we have excluded those 10 first IP addresses for each network. We have configured 2 pools, one for LAN at router 1, one for router LAN at router 3, which is named exactly as R1 LAN, R3 LAN. And as you can see, there is the IP address of the network, which means that this is the IP address that our devices will be able to get the IP address from this pool, and the devices will be able to get even the default gateway and the information about the DNS server. Same for the router 3. Another command is show IP DHCP binding. Okay, and it says that there is the list of devices that are able for the moment to get an automatic IPv4 address from our server. and is the router, the computer 1 and 3 with, and we have the information about the MAC addresses. How much time? Okay. Another one is show IP DHCP server statistics. So IP DHCP server statistics. IP DHCP. What's wrong? Did I write something wrong? No, that's the command. Let's see. It's not working, but anyway, it shows the statistics about DHCP. Let's do this. Binding conflict pool relay. Let's see, show IP DHCP. Anyway, probably this doesn't recognize this command. Another thing that you can find out the information about the, so let's go here, let's go in our command prompt by using the IP if all without space is the information that we can have. As you can see, we have the information about IP address, IPv4 address, subnet mask, the default gateway, the DNS server. Same would be for the computer too. So if you go to the command prompt, ipconfig /all will be the information about the IP address, subnet mask, the default gateway, and the information about the DNS server and from which gateway we'll get the DHCP, the IPv4 address from which server, which means that is the address of the interface that is connected with the router 3. So that is all about our packet tracer for implementing the DHCP version 4 in the packet tracer. And thank you for being with us. And if you like the video, share it with your friends. Hopefully the video was something that you liked and learned new things. And see you to the next session.